A tractor-trailer sat idling at a way station with the door hanging open. No driver, no note, just the hum of the diesel and the smell of burned coffee on the dash. March 19, 2007, a 43-year-old trucker named Russell Haines checked in at the State Route 58 way station in eastern Colorado at 11:47 a.m. His rig rolled onto the certified scale. The weight came back clean. The deputy inspector waved him through, but Russell never pulled back onto the highway. 9 years later, a records clerk noticed something in the archived scale ticket, a handwritten correction that no one had questioned at the time. Three things made no sense that morning. First, Russell's ELD showed him logging off the scale pad at 11:52 a.m., 5 minutes after the weight check. Second, his truck sat alone in the overflow lot, engine running, keys in the ignition. Third, the next ping from his toll transponder didn't come from eastbound Route 58. It came from a rural access road 18 miles north at 12:11 p.m. How does a driver vanish from a state facility, then reappear on a farm road 19 minutes later? The way station sat on flat prairie. No trees, no blind spots. 2 cameras covered the scale approach and the exit ramp. Russell's rig appeared on both. But in the 12-minute window between his weight check and his truck being found idling, no one saw him leave the cab. State Trooper Lena Voss got the call at 12:04 p.m. A way station attendant had spotted the abandoned truck during his lunch walkthrough. Lena arrived 8 minutes later. She found the driver's door ajar, the seatbelt hanging loose. The logbook lay open on the passenger seat. The fuel gauge showed 3/4 full. The load, 12 pallets of irrigation parts bound for a distributor in Kansas, sat untouched in the trailer, still sealed with a yellow tamper tag bearing the number 77A90214. Lena radioed dispatch. They pulled Russell's file. Clean driving record. No violations, no debts, no known enemies. He'd been hauling for the same carrier out of Pueblo for 9 years. His route that day was straightforward. Pueblo to Colby, Kansas via Route 58. A milk run. Nothing unusual, but the logbook showed something odd. The last entry, logged at 11:43 a.m., read, Scale stop SR58 MP 104. Weight 41,200. The handwriting matched Russell's. The mileage matched the way station location. But the ink looked rushed. The letters slanted hard to the right, as if he'd written it while bracing against something. Lena interviewed the DOT inspector who'd cleared Russell. His name was Carl Mendez. He'd been working the scale for 6 years. He remembered Russell's truck, a white Freightliner with a faded red stripe. He remembered the weight, 41,200 pounds, well under the 80,000-pound limit. He remembered waving Russell through, but he didn't remember anything unusual. No hesitation, no conversation. Russell had nodded, shifted into gear, and rolled off the scale. Did he say anything? Lena asked. Carl shook his head. Not a word. Just pointed at the weight display. I gave him the green flag. That was it. Did you see where he went after that? Figured he pulled around to the lot. Some guys park there to log their weight, stretch their legs. I went back inside. The next thing I know, the attendant's calling about an empty rig. Lena walked the lot, 40 yards from the scale pad to the overflow parking. Gravel surface. No skid marks. No footprints in the damp dirt along the fence line. She checked the truck again. The CB radio was tuned to channel 19, the trucker frequency. She keyed the mic. Static. No answer. She found Russell's phone in the cup holder. Locked. But the call log was visible on the lock screen. The last outgoing call had been at 10:52 a.m. to the carrier's dispatch. The last incoming call, 11:39 a.m., also from dispatch. 8 minutes before the scale stop, Lena called the carrier. The dispatcher, a woman named Brenda, confirmed both calls. The 10:52 call was routine, Russell checking in after his fuel stop in La Junta. The 11:39 call was her reaching out to confirm his ETA in Colby. She said Russell sounded normal. Maybe a little tired, but not distressed. He told her he'd be at the Kansas line by 2 p.m. Did he mention stopping at the way station? Lena asked. No, but he knew it was coming. He ran that route twice a month. Lena pulled the toll transponder data. Russell's truck had crossed the La Junta toll plaza at 10:37 a.m., heading east on Route 58. The next ping came from his transponder at 12:11 p.m., but not on Route 58. It came from County Road 19, a two-lane farm road that branched north off the highway, 16 miles past the way station. The road led to a handful of grain elevators and a defunct limestone quarry. No reason for a Kansas-bound truck to be there. Lena drove to the access point. County Road 19 split off from Route 58 at mile marker 120. A faded green sign marked the turn. She followed it north. The pavement gave way to gravel after half a mile. Fields on both sides, no houses, no parked vehicles. At 3 miles in, she found fresh tire tracks, wide, heavy treads consistent with a loaded tractor trailer. They led to a pullout near an irrigation ditch. The tracks stopped. Then they reversed, heading back toward the highway. She called in a request for the way station's camera footage. It arrived 2 hours later. The timestamp showed Russell's truck entering the scale approach at 11:46 a.m. The weight pad lit up at 11:47 a.m. Carl Mendez stepped out, checked the display, waved Russell through. The truck rolled off the scale at 11:48 a.m. Then it turned left, not toward the highway, but toward the overflow lot. The camera lost the truck behind a maintenance shed. It never reappeared on the exit ramp camera. Lena walked the shed. Concrete block maybe 20 feet on a side. A single door padlocked. No windows. The backside faced a chain-link fence, separating the way station from open prairie. She checked the fence. No breaks, no gaps. The overflow lot sat beyond the shed, 30 yards from the fence. Russell's truck was there, but the camera never caught it arriving. She pulled the maintenance shed's access log. The padlock required a key. Only 3 copies existed. 2 were held by the DOT station supervisor. 1 was held by the attendant. Lena checked with both. Neither had unlocked the shed that day. The supervisor said the shed held old signage and road marking equipment. No one had accessed it in 2 weeks. Lena reviewed the footage again. She slowed it down, frame by frame. At 11:49 a.m., the camera caught a flicker, something moving behind the shed. She couldn't make out a shape, just a shadow low to the ground. Then nothing. She returned to the truck. The ELD was still plugged in. She pulled the data. The log showed Russell's truck traveling at 48 miles per hour on Route 58 from La Junta to mile marker 104. Then the speed dropped. 11 miles per hour on the scale approach. 0 miles per hour at 11:47 a.m., then a 5-minute gap. At 11:52 a.m., the truck registered movement again, 3 miles per hour. The direction reading showed north-northwest. Not east toward Kansas, north. The ELD also logged a door ajar alert at 11:50 a.m. The alert lasted 90 seconds. Then it cleared. But there was no corresponding driver's seat pressure reading. The sensor registered weight on the driver's seat until 11:49 a.m. After that, nothing. Lena called in a K9 unit. The dog arrived at 3 p.m. It alerted on the driver's seat, then tracked a scent from the truck to the maintenance shed. The trail stopped at the shed's locked door. The handler tried the perimeter. The dog circled the shed twice, then sat. End of trail. Lena requested a warrant to open the shed. It came through at 5 p.m. She cut the padlock. Inside, road signs, orange cones, a rusted grater blade, dust thick enough to show footprints. But there were no footprints. No disturbance in the dust. The shed's rear wall was solid concrete. No hidden doors. No tunnels. She returned to the truck. The load seal was intact, number 77A90214. She broke it anyway. The trailer held 12 pallets of irrigation parts, strapped and shrink-wrapped. She counted the cartons. All present. No signs of tampering. She checked the reefer unit. Not running. This wasn't a cold load. Temperature strip on the inside wall showed steady 68 degrees. Normal. Lena interviewed the way station attendant. His name was Mike Torres. He'd worked there 4 years. He said he found the truck at 12:02 p.m. during his routine lot check. He thought maybe the driver had gone to the restroom or walked across the lot to the vending machines. But when he checked both, no one was there. He called it in. "Did you see anyone else in the lot?" Lena asked. "No, just the usual traffic rolling through. Any other trucks parked?" "One, a blue Peterbilt. But he left around 11:30. Lena pulled the scale logs. The blue Peterbilt had weighed in at 11:22 a.m. The driver's name was Harold Cass. She tracked him down by phone. He was already in Kansas. He remembered being at the weigh station. He remembered seeing Russell's white Freightliner pull onto the scale behind him. But he'd left before Russell finished his weight check. He hadn't seen anything unusual. The hours bled together. By nightfall, Lena had interviewed everyone who'd been at the weigh station that morning. None of them had seen Russell Haines leave his truck. None of them had seen anyone approach the truck. The cameras showed nothing. The dog trail led nowhere. The sheriff's office issued a missing person alert. Russell's photo went out on regional news. Truck stops along Route 58 posted flyers, but no one called in. No sightings. No leads. 3 days later, a rancher found Russell's wallet on County Road 19, half a mile north of the irrigation ditch. It held his license, 2 credit cards, and $83. No signs of violence, no blood. Just the wallet lying in the gravel. Lena processed it for prints. Only Russell's. She checked the credit cards. Neither had been used since March 18th, the day before the disappearance. She pulled the toll data again. Russell's transponder had pinged at County Road 19 at 12:11 p.m. But the rancher didn't find the wallet until March 22nd. It could have been there for 3 days, or someone could have planted it. The investigation stalled. Russell's family hired a private investigator. He retraced the route. He interviewed the same people. He came to the same dead ends. The carrier reassigned Russell's route. The truck sat in impound for 6 months, then went to auction. The load was delivered late, minus the carrier's penalty fee. Russell Haines became a file, then a cold case, then a name in a database. 9 years passed. In April 2016, a DOT auditor named Glenn Merrick was combing through archived weigh station records for a compliance review. The State Route 58 station had flagged an inconsistency in its 2007 logs, a clerical error that required reconciliation before the state could close out the fiscal year. Glenn's job was to match paper tickets against digital entries. He pulled the file for March 19, 2007. 42 trucks had weighed in that day. Most of the tickets were straightforward. But one caught his eye. Ticket number 070319-033, logged at 11:47 a.m. The truck, Colorado commercial plate JHT 4739, the weight 41,200 pounds. The inspector's signature, C. Mendez. Nothing unusual, except for a handwritten correction at the bottom of the ticket. The printed gross weight read 41,200, but someone had scratched it out and written 30,450 in blue pen. Beneath that, a notation, Reweigh Rec, scale variance. Glenn cross-referenced the digital log. The system showed only one weight entry for that truck, 41,200 pounds. No reweigh, no variance note. He called the Route 58 station. The supervisor, a man named Ed Ochoa, pulled the duty roster for March 19, 2007. Carl Mendez had been on shift. Ed checked the maintenance logs. No scale calibration issues reported that day. No variance flags. The scale had been certified 2 weeks prior and wouldn't be recalibrated until May. Glenn asked to see the original ticket. Ed scanned it and sent it over. The correction was clear. Someone had physically altered the printed weight, but the digital log showed no record of a second weigh. And the notation, Reweigh Rec, scale variance, used phrasing that didn't match DOT protocol. Inspectors logged variances as recall hold or pending cert, not Reweigh Rec. Glenn dug deeper. He pulled the transponder log for plate, JHT 4739. The truck had crossed the Lay, Janta Toll Plaza at 10:37 a.m., then nothing until 12:11 p.m. when it pinged on County Road 19. No eastbound. Toll recorded after the weigh station. He ran the plate. It came back to a 2004 Freightliner registered to a carrier in Pueblo. The truck had been sold at auction in September 2007, but the VIN matched a vehicle tied to a missing person case. Driver Russell Haines. Disappeared March 19, 2007. Last known location, State Route 58 weigh station. Glenn called the sheriff's office. Lena Voss had moved to a different district, but the case file was still open. Glenn explained the discrepancy, the scratched-out weight, the reweigh notation, the missing digital entry. The new investigator, a detective named Morris Kane, reopened the file. He pulled the original case notes. He saw that the scale ticket had been logged as evidence, but never analyzed in detail. The focus had been on the cameras, the ELD, the toll data. No one had questioned the weight itself. Morris called Carl Mendez. Carl had retired in 2014, but he agreed to meet. Morris showed him the ticket. Carl studied it. "I didn't write that," Carl said, pointing at the correction. "You're sure?" "Positive." "That's not my handwriting. And I never called a reweigh that day. The scale read 41,200. I logged it." End of story. Morris asked if anyone else could have accessed the ticket. Carl explained that after a truck cleared the scale, the ticket went into a lockbox at the inspector's station. At the end of the shift, the box was emptied and the tickets were filed in the office. Only the inspector and the supervisor had keys. Morris called Ed Ochoa again. Ed checked the 2007 personnel files. On March 19th, 2 people had access to the ticket lockbox. Carl Mendez and the station supervisor at the time, a man named Victor Landry. Victor had transferred to a Denver facility in 2008. He'd retired in 2013. Morris tracked Victor down. He lived in Fort Collins now. Morris drove up. Victor remembered the Haines case. Everyone at the station did. But he didn't remember altering any scale ticket. "Why would I?" Victor said. "If there was a problem with the weight, we'd log it digitally and call the driver back. We wouldn't scratch it out on paper." Morris pressed him. "Is there any reason someone would write 38,450 over 41,200? Victor thought, "That's a 2,750-pound difference. That's not a scale error. That's a load discrepancy." "Meaning?" "Meaning the truck was lighter than the bill of lading claimed. Could be a short load. Could be missing cargo." Morris pulled Russell's bill of lading. It listed the load weight as 41,200 pounds, matching the scale ticket's original entry. But if someone had rechecked the weight and found only 38,450 pounds, that meant 2,750 pounds, roughly 1.4 tons, was missing. Morris called the shipper. The company confirmed the load had been weighed before departure. "Certified scale in Pueblo, 41,200 pounds. The load was sealed at the dock with tamper tag 77A90214. The seal was intact when the trailer was recovered, but if the seal was intact, how could 1.4 tons vanish between Pueblo and the weigh station?" Morris re-examined the trailer. It had been sold along with the truck in 2007, but he traced it to a freight yard in Kansas. He drove out. The trailer was still in service, repainted and re-tagged. He checked the floor, the walls, the ceiling. No hidden compartments, no false panels, standard dry van. He returned to the scale ticket. The correction was made in blue pen. The original weight was printed by the scale's thermal printer. Morris sent the ticket to the state lab for handwriting analysis. 2 weeks later, the report came back. The blue pen markings didn't match Carl Mendez's handwriting. They didn't match Victor Landry's either. But the ink was consistent with a standard Bic ballpoint, common enough that it couldn't be traced. Morris reviewed the case timeline. Russell disappeared between 11:47 a.m. and 12:04 p.m., a 17-minute window. His truck was found idling at 12:04 p.m., but his transponder pinged County Road 19 at 12:11 p.m. That meant someone else drove the truck north after Russell vanished. Then that person returned it to the weigh station and left. Morris pulled County Road 19 records. The road served 4 properties in 2007, 2 grain operations, a cattle ranch and the old limestone quarry. He interviewed the owners. None of them remembered seeing a white Freightliner on March 19, 2007. The quarry had been shut down since 2003. The grain elevators saw truck traffic, but only during harvest season, not in March. Morris walked the quarry. Chain link fence rusted and sagging. A gate padlocked, he cut it. Inside gravel pits, concrete foundations, weeds. He found tire tracks, but they were old, baked into the clay. He found nothing that connected to Russell Haines. He returned to the weight discrepancy. If 2,750 pounds of cargo had been removed, where did it go? The load was irrigation parts, metal fittings, PVC pipe, valve assemblies. Not valuable enough to steal. Not hazardous. Not perishable. Why take it? Morris called the distributor in Kansas. They confirmed the load had arrived 6 days late, on March 25, 2007. All 12 pallets were present, but the distributor's receiving clerk noted something odd. The shrink wrap on 2 pallets had been cut and retaped. The contents were intact, but the original seal was broken. Morris asked which pallets. The clerk checked the old paperwork. Pallets 7 and 9. Both contained brass valve assemblies. High grade, resale value maybe $40 per unit. Each pallet held 60 units. Total value per pallet, about $2,400. 2 pallets, $4,800. Not enough to kill over, but enough to steal. Morris re-examined the bill of lading. It listed the valve assemblies by count, not by weight. But brass is heavy. 60 assemblies at roughly 4 pounds each would total 240 pounds per pallet. 2 pallets, 480 pounds, not 2,750. The math didn't close. Morris called the shipper again. He asked for the packing list. The shipper sent it over. The valve assemblies were packed 50 per carton, 6 cartons per pallet. But the packing list also noted a weight allowance for crating and dunnage, the wooden supports and padding. Total estimated weight per pallet, 340 pounds. 2 pallets, 680 pounds. Still not 2,750. Morris spread the documents on his desk. The scale ticket, the bill of lading, the packing list, the ELD log, the toll data, the wallet, the camera footage. He stared at them. Something didn't fit. Then he saw it. The ELD log showed Russell's truck traveling at 48 miles per hour from La Junta to mile marker 104. But mile marker 104 to the way station was only 2/10 of a mile. At 48 miles per hour, that's a 15-second drive. Yet the ELD showed Russell slowing down to 11 miles per hour, 3/10 of a mile before the scale. That meant he decelerated hard, harder than normal for a way station approach. Morris pulled the highway photos. The approach to the scale was flat. No grade, no sharp turn, no reason to brake early unless something was in the road, or unless the driver saw something. Morris checked the incident reports for March 19, 2007. Nothing, no debris, no accidents, no roadwork, but the camera footage showed Russell's truck slowing at 11:45 a.m., 2 minutes before the scale check. Morris watched the frames again. Russell's brake lights flashed, once, twice, then steady as the truck crept onto the scale approach. Normal behavior, except for the early deceleration. Morris called the lab. He asked them to enhance the footage. They isolated the frames showing Russell's windshield. The angle was bad, glare and dirt obscured the glass. But in 3 frames they caught a reflection. Someone standing near the shoulder off camera. Morris asked them to clarify the shape. They ran a contrast filter. The figure was tall, wearing dark clothing, arms at their sides. Facing the road, not a dot worker. They wore high-vis yellow. Not a stranded driver. The shoulder was empty in the wide shot. Just a figure watching. Morris checked the way station logs. No pedestrians reported. No walk-ins. But someone had been there. Close enough to make Russell brake. Morris went back to County Road 19. He walked the quarry again. This time he brought a metal detector. He swept the access road. 50 yards from the gate, the detector chirped. He dug. 6 inches down, a brass valve assembly. Scratched, dirt-packed, but unmistakable. He kept sweeping. 30 yards east, another hit. 2 more assemblies, then 4, then 12. By the end of the day, he'd recovered 97 brass valve assemblies scattered along a quarter-mile stretch of gravel road. Some were buried. Some were hidden in the weeds. All of them matched the part numbers on Russell's bill of lading. 97 units at 4 pounds each, 388 pounds. Still not 2,750, Morris called the shipper. He described what he'd found. The shipper pulled the original inventory. The valve assemblies were part of a larger order that included ballast anchors, heavy iron stakes used to secure irrigation lines. The ballast anchors weren't listed separately on the bill of lading. They were included under miscellaneous hardware. Each anchor weighed 16 pounds. The order included 150 anchors. Total weight, 2,400 pounds. Add the valve assemblies, 388 pounds. Total 2,788 pounds. Close enough to 2,750 to account for the scale. Variance, someone had unloaded part of Russell's cargo, enough to change the truck's weight by 2,750 pounds, then dumped the evidence at the quarry. But the load seal was intact. The trailer had never been opened, unless it was opened before the seal was applied. Morris called the Pueblo shipping dock. He asked if there was any gap between loading and sealing. The dock supervisor explained the process. Loads were built on pallets, shrink-wrapped, then moved into the trailer. Once the trailer was full, the seal was applied at the dock door. But sometimes, if a driver was running late or if the dock was busy, a loaded trailer would sit overnight before sealing. Morris checked Russell's pickup date, March 18, 2007. He picked up the load at 4 p.m., but the trailer had been loaded at 10 a.m., 6 hours unsealed. Morris pulled the dock's security logs. The camera covered the loading bay. He requested the footage for March 18th. It had been archived, but the company still had it. They sent it over. Morris watched. The trailer was loaded by 11 a.m. Then it sat. At 1:30 p.m., a white pickup truck pulled into the lot. A man got out. He wore a dock worker's uniform, grey coveralls, no name tag. He walked to Russell's trailer. He opened the door. He climbed inside. 16 minutes later, he came out. He was carrying a dolly stacked with cardboard cartons. He loaded them into the pickup. Then he drove away. The dock supervisor didn't recognize the man. The uniform was generic, available at any workwear store. The pickup had no plates visible on camera. But the man knew which trailer to target. He knew it was unsealed, and he knew what he was looking for. Morris estimated the cartons on the dolly. 6 cartons. Each carton could hold maybe 50 pounds of iron anchors. 6 cartons, 300 pounds. The man made 5 trips. Total, 500 pounds of anchors, plus the valve assemblies, removed during the same window, 388 pounds. Combined, 1,088 pounds. Not quite 2,750, but close enough if the man also removed dunnage, crating, or other dense packing material. Morris sent the footage to the FBI. They ran facial recognition. No match. But the footage showed one detail. The man wore a ring on his right hand. A thick band, possibly silver. Morris returned to the weigh station. He reviewed the camera footage from March 19th. The figure on the shoulder, the one Russell had braked for, appeared in 12 frames. Morris asked the lab to zoom in on the hands. Blurry but visible, a ring. Right hand. Thick band, same man. Morris built the timeline. The man stole part of Russell's cargo on March 18th. Russell didn't notice. The load was shrink-wrapped and he never checked the pallets. The next morning, Russell drove to the weigh station. The man was waiting. He flagged Russell down, pretending to be a stranded driver or a .E worker. Russell slowed. Maybe he stopped. Maybe the man asked for help, or directions, or warned him about a road hazard. And then something happened. Morris couldn't prove what, but the evidence suggested Russell was forced off the scale approach onto County Road 19, maybe at gunpoint, maybe through coercion. The transponder pinged at 12:11 p.m. That gave the man 30 minutes to drive Russell north, deal with him, dump the stolen cargo, and return the truck to the weigh station. But why return the truck? Why not just drive it into the quarry and leave it, Morris thought. The man had to know the truck would be traced. An abandoned rig would trigger an investigation, but an idling truck at a weigh station, with the keys, in the ignition and the door open, looked like a driver who'd stepped away. A bathroom break, a phone call. It bought time, and it worked. For 9 years, no one questioned the scale ticket. No one checked the weight variance. The altered number, 38-450, was dismissed as a clerical error. But it wasn't an error. It was evidence. Someone had reweighed the truck after the cargo was removed. Someone who had access to the scale ticket. Someone who wanted to document the theft, maybe for insurance, maybe for proof, but who also wanted to cover their tracks. Morris called Victor Landry again. He asked if anyone else could have altered the ticket. Victor hesitated. Then he said, "Carl had an assistant that spring, seasonal hire, kid named Derek Pratt. He helped with traffic control, paperwork, basic stuff. He left in May. I don't know where he went." Morris ran Derek Pratt, no criminal record, but his employment file listed a previous job, dock worker at a freight company in Pueblo, the same company Russell picked up from. Morris found Derek in Wyoming. He was working at a truck stop. Morris brought 2 state troopers. They arrested Derek on suspicion of theft. He didn't resist. In the interview room, Derek admitted stealing the cargo. He said he needed money. He said he knew Russell's route. He knew the trailer would sit unsealed. He took the anchors and the valve assemblies. He sold the anchors for scrap, 18 cents a pound. The valve assemblies were harder to move, so he dumped them. Morris asked about Russell. Derek went quiet. Then he said he saw me, at the shoulder. He recognized me from the dock. He pulled over. He asked what I was doing there. I told him my truck broke down. He didn't believe me. He started asking questions. I panicked. Morris waited. Derek said, I didn't mean to. I just wanted him to forget. I hit him. With a tire iron. He went down. I didn't think he'd... Derek stopped. Morris prompted him. Derek said, I left him at the quarry. I drove his truck back. I thought, if I just left the truck there, people would think he walked away. Had a breakdown. Something. I didn't think they'd look for him this long. Morris asked where. Derek gave directions. A pit at the north edge of the quarry, covered with gravel and debris. Morris called a search team. They excavated the pit. 48 hours later, they found remains. Dental records confirmed Russell Haines. Derek Pratt pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He received 23 years. The scale ticket, altered, overlooked, and finally understood, became the key exhibit. The 2,750-pound discrepancy wasn't a clerical error. It was a confession in numbers, written by a man who thought no one would care about the math. Russell's family buried him in Grand Junction. The carrier settled quietly. The way station installed new cameras, and Glenn Merrick, the auditor who noticed the scratch-out, went back to his files. He never missed a detail again. Some people say the way station's still haunted, that Russell's rig still idles in the overflow lot on March mornings, waiting for a driver who'll never come back. But that's not what keeps the night shift inspectors awake. It's simpler than that. It's knowing that the answer was there all along, printed on a ticket, scratched out in blue pen, waiting 9 years for someone to ask the right question. If a truck weighs 2,750 pounds less than it should, and no one breaks the seal, where did the weight go and who knew enough to write it down?